If I wanted to drop 10% of my body fat, here's the 10 things that I would do. And this isn't just what I would do. This is what I've helped hundreds of people do. It's very doable in anywhere from 4 to 6 months, depending on how much weight you have to lose. So let's get started.
This is where the fun begins.
The first thing that I would do is establish a baseline and really face the facts as to where you're starting at. And a lot of times people don't want to face those because it's uncomfortable, but the sooner that you can look at where you're starting at, the better you're going to be at being able to say, all right, I need to get started and working towards a better future. Do a set of photos, front, back, side. Weigh yourself. Do body measurements around your chest, your torso, your waist, and your hips. And so many times people don't do these things, and then they go on a weight loss journey or a fitness journey and they wish they had these. So I definitely recommend doing that at least. Blood work. If you aren't looking at things like your A1C, if you aren't looking at your cholesterol, if you aren't looking at your blood pressure, if you aren't looking at testosterone or other sex hormones, you want to make sure that you're taking a look at that and seeing how bad things are, or if they're at a decent spot. But if you don't have that data, you have no way to look at it. If you have a little bit of extra cash to spend, a DEXA scan can be a great way to get a really clear percentage of your body fat and see just how far you have to go, as opposed to looking at things from a scale or photo standpoint, which isn't going to be as accurate if you're trying to measure body fat specifically. The next thing I would do is establish a baseline of physical capabilities. This might be a mile time. This might be push-ups that you can do in a minute. This might be a plank and seeing how long you can hold that plank. But establishing that is then going to give you a baseline to work off of. If you're a little bit more advanced, you might have other lifts that you know, okay, I used to be able to do 10 pull-ups. Where am I at now? But having that baseline and having that starting point is going to be able to give you a sense of like, okay, here's where I'm actually at. I used to be able to do this. Now I can't. Now you're facing the facts a little bit more. And then finally, you're going to want to track all of this. And I've actually got a data tracker that I've used in the past with clients that tracks all this for you. And so a few things that you'll want to do. I would do daily weigh-ins and then take the weekly average. This does that for you. I would take photos once a week. I would do measurements once a week. There's a second tab that covers that, so you can see how that's trending and how that's progressing. But then I would also look at things like your sleep, your hunger, digestion, energy levels. That gets into a little bit of biofeedback. But the more things you track, the more ways, one, you're able to see success, two, you're able to recognize yellow flags before they become red flags and things that are a bigger issue to solve. And so if you go into the description, you're going to be able to join my school community and you can be able to grab this completely free and track all of this for yourself and have a way to measure your progress. The second thing that I would focus on is sleep. And it sounds so simple, but this is the linchpin to whether or not the next day goes well or it doesn't. So many people struggle with motivation, energy, focus, cravings, and it started the day prior when they didn't actually get enough sleep. And so they're going through the day on literally 50% of their energy because they slept for 4 hours. There's a few different things that I would do here to really improve this. One is I would set an alarm for when you want to start winding down. We all have alarms to wake up and start our morning routine, but I would have an alarm for when you need to go to bed. Set an alarm an hour before so you can start turning off screens, so that you can make sure you stop eating or snacking, so that you can make sure that you down-regulate your nervous system so that you're in a relaxed state. Some of the things that you can employ here are going to be reading, journaling, meditation, taking a shower, and then going from that into bed. Just something that relaxes you and gets you into a state where your body's now ready to go to bed, as opposed to working out and then trying to go to sleep, or playing a bunch of video games and then trying to go to sleep, and really disrupting what is your circadian rhythm. And so the more that you can go to bed as things are getting dark and wake up with the light, that's going to make it much easier for you to get into a good routine. And that's going to help sync your hormones. That's going to help sync your energy so that you're getting the most out of the next day. Number three is I would simplify my diet. A good frame of reference for this is that simplicity scales, fancy fails. Complexity creates confusion is another one that I like to go off of. And so what I like to use for this is what I call the 5x5 essence. For breakfast, I would have scrambles or smoothies, a protein shake essentially, or eggs with some sort of turkey bacon on the side is going to be a great way to make something super simple in the morning. Then for lunches, I would go with either stir fry, soups, or scrambles. And that stir fry is going to be something, kind of think of like a poke bowl, where you have your base, you have your proteins on top, you have 1 or 2 sides of vegetables, and then the different sauces or seasonings that you add to it. Same thing with the salad. You've got your greens as your base, your protein on top of it, 2 or 3 fruits or vegetables on the side with a different seasoning. For a soup, you got your broth or sometimes water, and then you have your proteins on top of it. You add your beans, maybe a little bit of sauce. You get 2 or 3 recipes that you like for lunch. You get 2 or 3 recipes that you like for dinner. You've got your scramble, or you've got your protein shake that you do for breakfast, and you can move those into lunch or dinner, and then you're snacking on protein. But if you can establish, hey, I make these 10 meals and I just rotate them in or out, that's where your 80-20 comes from. When people talk about 80-20, they're talking about 80% of the time you're just focusing on the basics, and then life gives you that 20%. That's where vacations, weddings, birthdays, holidays, or special occasions where, yeah, you do go and eat outside of that. But if it's just a regular Tuesday afternoon, you don't need novelty. A lot of times food can be more transactional, and then it becomes more experiential in that 20%, in that 10%, if you're trying to go more 90-10 and really be dialed in. But I would just simplify it so that you don't need to think about it. You've got your breakfast that you have. You've got your 1 or 2 lunches that you have. Like, I'll do ground turkey or ground beef with some ready-made rice, with a couple vegetables on the side to maybe help with fiber, add some tapatio to it, and then bam, it takes maybe 5 minutes to make. And so you just find those 1 or 2 recipes and you just make those honestly over and over and over. The fourth thing that I would do, and it's kind of tied to nutrition, is going to be making sure that you're getting enough protein, because it's not just enough to just eat randomly. You want to make sure that you're getting enough protein to help with satiation, to help with muscle development, to help with recovery, and also to help with the thermic effect of food. When you look at how the body utilizes energy, one of the biggest components of that is the body expending more energy to break protein down. A ratio that I really like to focus on here, if I'm having a meal or I'm having a snack and the goal is to get a higher intake of protein, I want to aim for 10-1. What I mean by that is, for every 10 calories, I want to get 1 gram of protein. So if I'm having a 500 calorie lunch, I want to try and get 50 grams of protein, which, yeah, will be a lot, but what you want to aim for from a protein target is going to vary based on individual. So I don't want to give a blanket number here, but if you are, let's say, a heavier set individual, 300 pounds, I would target either your goal weight or maybe a weight that you were in college or in your younger 20s, because unless you went through a phase where you packed on a ton of muscle, your frame hasn't changed. Your height, your bone structure hasn't changed from that time window. So if you go back to maybe when you were 50, 60, 70 pounds lighter, I would target a protein intake there, because that's going to be more around where people typically would say, hey, aim for 1 gram per pound of body weight. That's the other one that I would go for. Let's say you're 200 pounds, you're trying to drop 10%, get to 180, aiming for gram per pound there would be a great place to start. Goal weight or 1 gram per pound is a really simple way to just identify. So if you're aiming for 180 grams of protein, that means 3 meals of 50-50-50, and then maybe a protein shake or a side of 30 grams of protein there. Number 5 is going to be moving more. And this is specifically going to be talking a lot about walking. A lot of people have put weight on, especially during the pandemic era. I don't know if YouTube's going to shun me if I say the C word, so we'll say the pandemic era. So many people were going great, 2018, 2019, 2020 hit, boom, they put the weight on. And the biggest thing that slowed down was just them. We're all locked inside, or maybe you weren't walking to work, you weren't as active at work. And so bringing that back into your day-to-day is one of the best ways that you can, one, increase calorie expenditure, because we're going to talk about this later, but when you work out, that's a 1 hour window. That's 4% of your day, even less, 2% if you're only working out 30 minutes. So you can try and burn as many calories as you want during that time. I'll explain why that's not a great idea. Or you can say, all right, for the other 15 hours I'm awake, let's create more movement. Let's get off the couch. Let's walk to go and pick things up. Let's go and walk to our favorite coffee shop, walking in between meetings. If you're going to call a friend, call them, go for a walk while you're talking to them. As I mentioned, it's going to expend more energy. Your total daily energy expenditure is going to be higher because your non-exercise activity thermogenesis is going to be higher. And you can reference this chart right here. Hopefully my video editor puts that in. But the big thing here is that we want to increase the overall activity through walking over the course of the day, through things like moving my hands, blinking. That's all energy expending activities that isn't working out, that isn't just laying and existing on the couch. The other thing this is going to help with is anxiety. And it's going to help down regulate any stress that you're experiencing, getting out in nature. And it's going to be a great way to just kind of down regulate your nervous system and get relaxed, which again, if you're someone who stress eats, going for a walk is a great way to down regulate that stress. You're going to be less likely to stress eat. And then finally, this is a big one, digestion. Going for a walk after you eat is going to help with digestion. It gets you more parasympathetic. It's your parasympathetic state of your nervous system where you're going to digest food. So if you're feeling backed up or your body's not digesting the food you've been having, sometimes going for a 30-minute walk is one of the best things that you can do to help with that. Now, in terms of specific numbers you want to aim for or how you want to go about this, typically you're going to see 8 to 10,000 steps. That ends up being a lot of walking. So if you're not able to do that in a big long walk, one thing that's been really helpful for me is a walking pad. I'll put one underneath my desk and I'll be able to get more steps in just throughout the day when I'm working at my desk. You could also walk after you work out in the gym and get in 15, 20 minutes there. And obviously if you're walking at work or you're walking throughout the day, that's going to be helpful as well. Number 6, I would strength train and focus on improving my strength and my performance and the functionality of my body, as opposed to looking at it as a way to expend more energy and burn more calories. It's not the most efficient way to burn calories. When you look at an hour time frame, let's say that hour you're trying to burn as many calories as possible, what that ends up leading to is now these workouts are all optimized for how many calories can I burn, as opposed to how mobile can I get? How strong can I get? And focusing on building muscle, which is one of the best things that you can do, not just for overall health and longevity, but it creates kind of this equity in your body where now your body's able to maintain a much higher calorie intake and not store fat. So there's so many benefits from a strength training standpoint, really progressive overload. So the best way to do that is to increase the amount of weight that you're doing, because that's something that doesn't take up more time, but it does increase the intensity. It gives your muscle a stimulus to grow and build muscle. A lot of people, when they say I want to lose fat and I want to build muscle, well, part of that component is strength training. You can't just lose the weight and then all of a sudden your body looks like almost like a skinny fat where you're just kind of like melted. You got to make sure that you're strength training on top of that as well. One other thing I would say about this as well is so much confidence is derived from strength training and seeing what you're capable of and seeing yourself achieve things that you didn't see possible. If you're just focused on the scale and not strength training, that will also kind of play with your head a little bit. I've seen, at least anecdotally, where all of a sudden it's this number that you're chasing, but there's no sense of, am I there yet, right? Let's say you lose the 20 pounds. It's like, are you confident at 20 pounds lost, or is it more of a body composition that you're looking for? And then with that, if you're chasing something that is performance or strength related, that is something that you can continue to chase. Whereas let's say you lose the 20 pounds, you hit your goal. Now what do you have to chase? And if you're like, Paul, I have no idea where to start with strength training. Well, I've got over 240 workouts, and you can choose anything from 10 to 30 minutes, dumbbells, kettlebells, body weight bands. There's something for you to start. So I would start there, which is actually a good segue into number 7, which is going to be investing in a coach and getting some accountability. The truth is, if you could do it on your own, you either would have already, or you can continue to try and research and figure it out on your own, or you can condense the amount of time it takes for you to do that research. Taking 6 to 12 months to learn, go through and do things the right way will ensure that you don't need to go through that process ever again. You're going to get the result and you're going to understand how to get there, how to maintain things. And it just shortens the amount of time it takes for you to get where you want to get. Being able to make sure that you understand what your body needs specifically, how to maintain the results that you're getting, and when to adapt and change the plan and strategy that you're using pays for itself in the long run. The other thing too is a lot of people will lose the weight, and then that crash dieting loses the weight, but they don't have the strength, they don't build the muscle, they don't take time making sure that they have a building phase so that it's much easier for them to maintain the weight loss that they have. And so it really just makes sure that you don't spin your wheels over and over and over, and you do things the right way. Number 8, audit your environment. And this is one that I would say is like sleep in that it's really overlooked, but you will have the hardest time ever if you are trying to change your mindset, your beliefs, your actions, your habits, and your environment is trying to keep you pressed down, is trying to hold you back. This is the people that you hang out with. This is the social media that you scroll through and see on a daily basis. This is the books you're listening to, the movies you're watching, podcasts you're listening to. Everything that comes into your eyes and ears affects your brain, and it affects what your beliefs are. It affects what you think is possible. It affects what you think is normal. So many people want to try and escape the life that they're in, but they never change their environment. So their environment holds them down. And if you're someone who's trying to, let's say, lose 10% of your body weight, like this video is talking about, and everyone around you is totally fine being overweight, not working out, eating unhealthy. Well, you trying to escape that is like trying to break free of this tar that is constantly trying to pull you back. Humans are very tribal. For you to go and break away from that tribe or break away from that environment, you're going to need to make sure that you've got an environment that you can go to that is more supportive, but you're going to constantly fall back into whatever your environment is creating. Our thoughts, our beliefs, our identity, our habits, it's all created by how we grow up, and it's all set in place and reinforced by the environment that we find ourselves in. And so that's a really good segue into number 9, finding yourself a community that can help create an environment of success. I would look at 8 as almost trying to just shed all the things that have been holding you back. And then number 9 is putting yourself in a tribe where people are just like you. They've got similar goals. They've got similar interests. They've got the beliefs that you want to have. But seeing them achieve their goals makes it all of a sudden believable that you could achieve yours. Really good, clear example of this is if I've got someone in my community who has lost 80 pounds, I've not lost 80 pounds, but seeing a father of 2 lose 80 pounds, being able to do it in a sustainable way, I'm like, oh, wow, they have a lot of the same challenges or obstacles or background as me. They can do it, so can I. And that community is there to support you, to give you that accountability as well. And if you do fall down, a really good community will pick you up. I think community is one of the best ways that you can do what I call raise your thermostat. So let's say you're operating life at 75 degrees. Well, if you get inside a community that has a higher set of standards, they've got big goals, they've got ambitions, and they're at 85 degrees, getting into that environment is going to raise you up 75, 76, 77, and get you to 85. Finally, number 10 is create some sort of gamification. And this is going to be something that I particularly like because I grew up as a gamer and it's how I operate for both myself and the clients that I work with. I like to think of every day, week, and month as missions. So if you log into a video game, you're going to have a daily mission, something that you got to do each day. So what I do every single day in my journal is I write down what are the 3 or 5 things that I've got to do. If I do that, that day is a win. Creates this bar where you're going from 0, like let's say you got to get all 5 things done. You see 1 of 5, 2 of 5, 3 of 5, 4 of 5, 5 of 5. You're working upwards towards an achievement-based goal as opposed to thinking about all the things that you need to give up. Oh, I got to cut out Coca-Cola, or I got to stop doing this, or I got to wake up early and go to the gym when it's cold. You're focusing on, all right, what are the little steps that I got to do to then unlock the next state? And in a video game, you got to go level 1 to level 50. That might take time. Just like if you're losing weight and going pound 1 loss to pound 30 loss, that takes time. But if you can create shorter interval loops of daily missions, weekly missions, monthly missions, all of a sudden you've got a shorter feedback loop success. It's a different mindset in that you're no longer eliminating things and counting down. Now you're counting upward. And when you look at creating new habits, one of the most powerful things you can do is reinforce positive inputs with rewards. It's a form of operant conditioning. And this is something that I really like to do with myself and with clients, where when you hit, 20 workouts for the month, you get some sort of prize, you get some sort of decal. You can check out this video here for 3 ways to really gamify your fitness and make it so that you are creating this flywheel of success, belief, and momentum. And when you have momentum, it's just a matter of time till you hit that 10% of your body fat lost. And if you want to keep going, 10, 15, 20, you just keep repeating the steps listed in this video. Hope you found this helpful. If you have, hit a subscribe, give me a like or a comment. See you in the next video.